Hey, so I'm putting this on really quick because I want to give a rundown for what Saturn in Pisces is doing. But it looks a lot like it looked in the summer of 1965. We were not the same after. Historically, there are differences. So back in 65, we had the outer planets, Pluto and Uranus, opposing Saturn in Pisces. Now we have Saturn in Pisces, Jupiter in Gemini, just like 65. But the other powerful forces that be are a little off to the side. So, what we are seeing is that we're living in an era where the consolidation of threat and control and power has really already happened. So, the tension between old bureaucracies and things that organize in a slow, heavy, systematic way, crumbling, like infrastructure crumbling, um, is no longer facing off, fighting for its right to be. We just don't have a difference anymore. Um, And one of the things that means astrologically is that we can push. We can push on what's happening now. Jupiter in Gemini is super populist. It takes the scattered little powerless things and does its best to scoop it all together. It has a challenge in that, but boy, are those structures and bureaucracies relying really heavily on how Jupiter's doing because they're in Pisces. So we have this interreliant thing going on where, for the first time in quite a few years, the power of the people could actually do something. And we're already seeing it happen. As we do this transition, we're actually fighting for the things that have meaning and heart to us. So this is something that's happening no matter what side of the political spectrum, no matter where you feel yourself aligned. The populism is real. It's happening. The decay of infrastructure is real. That's happening, and that's going to matter to a wider group of people than anything that is ideological. So on a tiny level in our own charts, we are also having a crisis of meaning. So, reorienting around what actually is feeding you, what structures are falling away. For some of us, it's actually like in our bodies. So, people struggling with chronic illness, working through the medical system and seeing how much that infrastructure is certainly not functioning in a way that feels equal and accessible to all. We have different ways that we're experiencing these shapes in our own personal lives. I am going to just go quickly through the chart. We've done this in our rising sign group. So if you want to watch something that is more thorough and is about your sign specifically, you can go to our membership. They're small, they're really small. So you can go watch those recordings or you can actually drop in on a group with us. So if I'm talking to any Aries risings, so much of what is happening right now is really just your day to day and how busy things are. And we're looking at this Jupiter and Saturn relationship that's actually pulling your siblings back in a little bit. And there are some things in your subconscious, or there are ways you are feeling isolated in your professional world or the kinds of groups that you're involved with, and it's not sitting totally right inside. So we're seeing Saturn as kind of chilling a belief structure that you've had for a long time. So Jupiter is giving you a fresh beginner's mind to address those things for a little while. Once we get deeper into the summer, we have things where the actual experience of your home life becomes a very potent experience. And I want to see how that's unfolding for you and what parts of life it's also activating. If you are a Taurus rising, the sense of chill that Saturn's bringing and the sense of maybe stopping or decay, or I'm building authority in something that I'm feeling out. That's all happening in your friend groups. And this means that we are spending the time that we might normally be feeling really good about that. It's actually having this action of pushing you into doing your independent resources in a way that is, maybe it feels overdue, but really what's starting now is awesome, is amazing. And there's a lot of variance in how you Taurus risings are feeling this. You're used to so much going on for just day-to-day maintenance, things that you have to do. And we're getting a little more into the places in our head where we do psychological problem solving, and it's quite a lot. And so this summer, when we get into the summer solstice and beyond, there's a renewal of like how you do your day-to-day, and even the opportunity the opportunity to prepare for a time where you're in the dirt and you're getting a lot of it out. And I say that metaphorically. Some of you are gardeners and farmers, and some of you are not. So we can look at all kinds of different shapes there. Our Gemini risings are doing a lot. Maybe this is taking on a role that is really new for you. Maybe this is school far away. We have some aspirational things that look like a long, dogged road. And there's something pushing you into groups of people that hasn't felt as intense as it has this year. So, looking ahead into October, looking ahead into our next eclipses, we're really seeing the independence as a struggle, but also as this really worthwhile thing. And part of that means getting into groups that are a little different, going into your networks, and this idea that you're trying to take on something that has a real title, that has a real name to it, is a little unconventional for Gemini for the regular pattern. So I'm so curious about what it is that we are wanting to give support around for Gemini risings. When we look at our Cancer risings, this whole last year, which still feels like it's going, is pushing us to get back out into the world, or to go further out and to take on something that is a little more supportive of the kind of either parent or artist we want to be, and also visible in a way that we can handle. So a lot of this year has the learning and the aspiration and the long-term planning is hard to reach. It's kind of hard to reach. So we're doing preparatory things that get us into a space that makes a little more sense for us. So I want to help figure out what that looks like for different Cancer risings. There's been a few shifts that mean that the heaviness is actually in anything involving travel, in anything involving higher education. So maybe that used to be a little more free flowing for you, and we can put some time markers around what that is, what that's doing. When we look at our Leos, our Leo risings, that kind of weight and coldness and density that is our structures around relationship and our physical bodies are encountering the need to rely on resources that it's not us doing it, it's not us resourcing all of that, but there's a weight there. And the counterbalance, the thing that is challenging, is coming from what we are seeing in lots of different people that we care about. So we're like, wow, those are all interesting people that I admire, and yet they have different opinions and different issues that they go on about. And I think that there's something unifying. Like, I think there's something unifying about that. It's also friends being there, ready to help you with some scarcity that perhaps is the case from anything to do with a business partnership or a marriage or one of those close client across the table relationships. Looking forward to the end of the summer for Leo. Maybe we want to double think the things that we take on for certifications, or maybe roles that we take on where we're inspiring, where we're going farther in the world, where we're traveling afield, that we want to think out. We don't want to rush into things, because later we're going to be stewing over it a little bit, and we'll root up some things no matter what about what it means to feel safe. So we have a lot of this inner work going on for our Leo risings. Our Virgos, wow. There's something with the Virgo rising charts this year. So much of what you do typically is optimizing spaces that you're in, or knowing what the little tweak would be to get it working right. And now we're actually looking at a time when the things that you are trying to do are feeling like there's a weight or a heaviness coming from the people that you're closely trying to do it with. So if this is a partner, and it's a bit, it shuts down some of the agency that maybe you would have exercised previously in life, and it's leading to a challenge to what you want to do for your real aspirational work. And it's putting some of the things that maybe just feel like drudgery into the pool of necessity, where you're like, oh, I just got to do this, or I got to do that. And so we're encountering some of these eighth house topics of dependency, and the kinds of extraction that we do when we are enmeshed in resources, and we're trying to make sure we're sharing them in a way that makes sense for where we all want to be, really. So there's a bunch of puzzles there. If I'm speaking vaguely, it's because there are so many options for each one of these signs for how this could be affecting you personally, and I would love to sit one-on-one and talk with you about it. Libra risings are really having a heck of a year. The south node of the eclipses is a draining thing, and it's purifying your sense of self in a way that it could be pretty disorienting, kind of taking away things you thought were true. We empty things out before we add them back in, kind of phase. So we could look at timelines for how that project is going. In general, though, Libra rising has this picture in the chart going into this summer where something has been started in a place that leads to being in a role that is like teaching, or having a good communication with people who want to hear what you have to say. And the weight is the labor. There's so much going on that needs to be done. And can the body sustain it? Sometimes what we see for this shape is exploring and learning about things that have actually been with us a long time, especially in the physical form. So if we are a person with chronic illness, like discovering more about that and how to deal with it. And this is always going to be a lot of mental work. Anything that's happening in the physical realm, we're going to wonder about the implications and all of that. So people have different ways that their own strategies could be helping this, and we can find more. We can always find more. The Scorpio risings are doing some really radical stuff. But now that we've had this shift of Jupiter into Gemini, it's a little more in the shadows. We're like following through on things that we decided to do already. And the emphasis really is on tasks a lot. Um, But with the movement of Mars, we're going into the summer having a sense of wanting so much to get things done and push through, and finding ourselves kind of going back over some old things, and having some patience with that is great, because there's this initiation that Mars is doing through Taurus, where it's setting off all of the things that were carefully buried over the last year as like seeds that could grow. So we're starting those. We're seeing them put out their little leaves. The structural things that feel hefty for Scorpio risings are going to be around the ideas that family might have about the future. There's certainly some Scorpios with some prepper doomer families. I would love to talk to you. And then also just like how the day-to-day living could feel a little dreamy, could start to feel a little dreamy. So we're watching for those things. And then so much about what these outer planets are doing. I just am enthusiastic. I'm enthusiastic about what our Scorpio risings have been up to. The Sagittarius risings are a people, a whole group of people who really embody Jupiter. So we are putting ourselves in a perspective that is really considering what the other is up to. We're really considering maybe preemptively how things might go, and wanting to kind of be there in a way where we want another person to consider us. So there's this emphasis with Jupiter in the seventh house on partnership. So if you're like, oh, why am I thinking about these things, or why am I having crushes, or what is happening between me and my long-term person right now? I feel like I'm really in their corner. Jupiter is really doing that, really is. And that's okay. And that is fine to give into. There are blockages to it, so we might feel a little suppressed around some of these things. And those are coming from Saturn. So those are take a long time to move. I would just say that this gives us a lot more reflection on the real self. We have been through a year where Jupiter was not really connecting with the sense of self, and was more so in a place where the needs were strong. There was a need to be doing the things that keep you okay. And now Mars is setting off things in the sixth house. So we want to be careful with our bodies, even as we have these newfound realizations about ourselves. When I'm thinking about Capricorn risings, they're embodying Saturn, and Saturn itself is less good at the exactitude of hierarchy right now. And Capricorn risings tend to do well if they know where they stand. We could feel a little soupy. That feeling is a little eerie, like it's looming in what we feel daily. So I would encourage all of the flurry of activity. It looks like a lot of maybe social media posting, the internet having the same dead zones as the ocean is like what this looks like an awareness that you're trying to be focused on home life, but there's a draw away from being out there, being seen. That looks a little tricky if you're like relying on things for income that take a lot of your input, a lot of your effort, but some amazing projects starting in the realm of the labor and work that you do. Aquarius risings are also embodied by Saturn, but Saturn isn't looking right at you right now. This is more like, I feel like I need to make sure that people like me have what they need. So it's easy to see all the humans as people who need things. So if you're in touch with that and you're working on really focusing and honing on what you are about. And it could be pretty intense. We're having Pluto just lives in your first house now. And Pluto has been talking to all these planets that are starting something very creative, but maybe in the realm of technology. If you're having kids, we are seeing a lot of playfulness and activity in the place. We feel really liberated. So I'm excited about all of this. Scarcity is real. So when we're in a time where Mars has over the last year been so intense as to be symbolizing an atrocious genocide that is not happening under the radar. And now that Mars has moved and will spend time away from those very heightened, hot things, which is feeding how you do your reputation and what you want people to hear and what people see when they see you. Mars now is giving us this opportunity to actually take a minute at home, or if you are near family, this this is a little more like spinning your wheels in the mud, but Saturn and the creative projects are pushing to have something that feels more scrappy but free. So I'm excited about the ideas that are going on here. A lot more on the ground in your community than like up in the ivory tower kind of thing. I'm bending this in the direction of revolutionaries because I'm hoping we have a lot of those out there. But honestly, every little thing that's happening in the world is also reflecting an archetypal shape inside of us. So we can have the same story where there's, wow, something so potent and martial. So for Pisces risings, this has been really going for it with independent resources. Depending on your relationship to Mars in your birth chart, there's been heightened activity. And this could be like, wow, everybody's in my house. Everybody's coming to visit this month, as we look at our transition to solstice. And they're finally gonna leave. Or we can really have this recovery after a time of grief is what I'm seeing actually in a lot of Pisces rising. And there's signatures in your third house that look a little spicy. And this is where we drive cars, and this is where we bike, and this is where we go for walks in our neighborhood. So I would want to see like your relationship to Venus in your chart, and just make sure any of that heavy responsibility that has been part of what you're bringing to the table over the past year and for the next year, that some of that has a place to go. And I would love to talk to more Pisces risings. So those are all 12 of the signs, and just tiny sketches of what could be going on with topics, what's going on. I'm just spinning the chart around and taking a look at it. I hope that you skim the rest of this newsletter. And if you made it this far, I have some pretty exciting offerings for astrology nerds, for students. We're doing a Mercury walk through the bounds. So we're going to talk about Mercury every week in the consideration before judgment membership space. And that's been fun so far. It's a way to learn about one of those smaller divisions in the zodiac, and we're going to pay attention throughout the year. That's just included with all the same group stuff. I think that's it for this moment. I'm going to end this video and finish my little blog post on Jupiter and Gemini. I hope to see more of you. Hope to see more of you. I moved recently, so I have an office that is super functional. I have time and space, advocacy skills, trauma awareness. Your trauma is welcome. We don't have to make it about that. It's just I will probably not be super prone to say the wrong things. All right. Hoping to see you soon. Bye, everybody.